We are going to get more specific with what you can do using fascia activations to help if you're suffering with arthritis in your hands or fingers. I'm going to go through briefly the joints in the finger and how you can work through each joint. This particular work, if you are really aiming to make some changes with arthritic discomfort you have, it takes a bit of time. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to do it. We'll do some of it together, but then this video is meant for you to be able to come back to with the information you need and then take your time on your own to execute it depending on what you might need. So you might have one finger that is more problematic than the rest. And in that circumstance, you would spend a little bit more time on that finger. All right, let's begin first by talking about the different hinge joints of your finger. So if you look at your hand and wave high, this particular joint here, the one that is farthest away, is your distal interphalangeal joint. Then you have your proximal interphalangeal joint, and then you have your metacarpal interphalangeal joint. So 1, 2, and 3. You can separate the fascia work at each joint. Some of the tricky things that come up is how do you grab it? How do you secure and stabilize it as you're working each joint? I suggest having a block or a table or something that you can use as a surface to work from. Let's begin first by working the distal interphalangeal joint, this one right here. Let's test out your range of motion first. So you can take your left hand and place your middle finger right here and then your thumb just below that joint. So you're stabilizing the joint here and then bend just at the tip of your finger. So you're creating almost like a long stem or flagpole of security here. And then you're just testing to see how much range of motion you have. Now, when you go into a fascia activation just for this joint, you would bring your hand to a surface and bring the finger out enough that you have space to fold forward like this. You still need to offer some stability for the finger as you isolate that joint. I like to take my thumb and place it on the finger. Let's see, whereabouts is the best place to do? Just below your proximal hinge joint here might be a good place to start. Test out that you have some motion, and then you'll take your other finger underneath. So you shorten, just as we do with all the fascia activations, the tissue first. So you're shortening right through here by bending it. That's your first position. So play around. It can get a little bit tricky, but each finger I use a little different positioning to stabilize. So find some stability here. Bend the pointer finger down. Finger goes underneath it. Now resistance happens. Keep pushing it down to contract those little muscles nice and easy as you guide it in the opposite direction. So try to find your stability first. Bend to shorten second. Keep resisting gently as you come up. Now, if you have arthritis and you have discomfort in that particular area, you might need to start just with getting some flexion or bending it forward and just using your other finger at different points. Pushing into it without movement might be where you begin. It can be very tricky and very precise, so play around with it. You want to find that moment like, yep, I have it. Bingo, that's it. And it might be that your finger is more on the inside or on the outside. The reason I'm being so specific in my cueing for this is that I did this work on my mom. A couple months back, she was having arthritic pain. What's interesting is she has some visible arthritic changes in her hands from when she used to ride a pony with her fingers kind of hooked in a hole here. And those look arthritic, but she doesn't have pain in them. She actually has pain in other fingers that don't look as arthritic. But the angles in which the fingers might go determines where you put your other finger, right? Where we put the contact tells our brain where we want to be and where we want to connect to. So let's do after talking through that, 4 of them just on this one pointer finger distal hinge joint. Find your surface, find some stability in the finger, other finger below it, gentle resistance down as you bring it up. 1 and 2, maybe changing your position ever so slightly. 3, 1 more, and 4. Let's move on to another finger. Ooh, feels interesting. Let's go middle finger on your right hand. Find some stability through that other portion of your finger. You can test out your flexion. Finger comes down, resistance down. For 4. You can go slower than me. 3. And of course, you can adjust how you're creating the stability in the movement. 2. 1 more time. And 1. Let it release. So what you're doing here is, if the fascia is stuck in almost like a claw curling in position, it's going to keep you that way, right? It's going to lock you in this position. If we can nudge the fascia, that small area of your body, just a little bit, you might get more mobility and more muscle, effective, controlled movement, if that makes sense. And then decrease in pain as well. So you have pain receptors in your fascia. So if you have pain in your fingers, this could be helpful. All right, so let's then move on to the next joint. So we're going to go into the proximal interphalangeal joint here. Good, right? That guy. So you can test it out here. You can do flat finger, you can curl it, but just kind of get a feel for it. Now you're going to bring your hand a little bit far forward so that you have more motion at that next joint. Other hand is going to go underneath. Feel free to keep your thumb on the finger for stability, or you can keep it separate and do a grip like this. Let's do 4 of them together here, keeping it nice and light. 4, bringing it down. Bring my thumb back up. 3, if you're bending too much at the distal joint, move your fingers underneath it, and that will work to help keep that finger straight. Good. 1 more time. Get a feel for it. Take your time. Good. Let's move on to the middle finger here. Finding that folded position over the block or surface. Resist it in as you bring it up. And now with this one, I'm noticing I'm kind of reaching the finger up higher because it's feeling good. So I'm continuing the motion all the way up to the next joint. That's the metacarpal interphalangeal joint. Don't worry, don't have to remember that. But resisting the finger down, finding a good grip, keeping the rest of the hand stable and connected. See how I'm kind of putting my thumb here for stability? I just basically kind of create variations as I'm going through the work, which is what I want you to do too. Let's move on to the next finger. Those two got a lot of work. You know, and each finger might need something different, so you might not need the same amount of time on each one. When I did the work with my mom, it was maybe 2 minutes, and I was very precise in where we found the positioning. And a couple times she had discomfort, so we adjusted, and I found just the right placement. She was able to make a gentle connection, and the movement was millimeters. But the next morning, she said she woke up for the first time without pain in that finger in a long time. So hence, video on finger arthritis. All right, just check that out for a moment. It's amazing how the energy flows through your body. As you do work with me, you probably can feel it traveling after doing this work in unique places or referring energy or sensation to somewhere else. But the continuation of our fascia goes all the way to our fingertips, all the way to the tippy top of our head, all the way to every single toe. So when you have the time or the need and the desire, continue all the effort you do elsewhere in the body to reach those really far away places, because the fascia goes there too. So does your nervous system, so does the energy flow in your body. Okay, let's do another one here. Now let's work just the whole hand at this metacarpal junction here, this guy. I like this because you can do it with a prayer position using both hands. We're going to focus on your right hand here. Bring your right hand forward, just ever so slightly, to shorten the tissue throughout the hand. Press the right hand this way into your left. Your left is going to be your working hand, and you're going to slowly start to fold at that joint. Relax to come forward. This isn't big. The muscle contraction is very light. You're just being aware of your sensations, what you're feeling. You can change the angle ever so slightly. Gentle resistance. You can bring it down to a surface. Good. Just playing around with it. So then you're getting the fascia from the tippy top of the fingers all through the palm of the hand and reaching down. Now taking it a little bit further, see how we're doing a progression here. You can find your surface and a bend at the wrist. Other hand goes gently underneath it. Press the right hand down into the left hand. And then continue that fascia work. Now you're going to travel all the way through the forearm. So you can see how when you have that time, that space, that focus, you can really work through some difficult to reach places in the hand. If you're doing this one and you want to get to the other side of the forearm up here in the back of the hand, keep the hand up, shortening the space here and the muscles and tissues. The right hand's going to press up this way, the back of the hand into the left hand. And you'll slowly start to fold it over. You can follow through with the fingers. Relax to come back up. You can angle it on a diagonal. You can push it away on a diagonal. And each time you make that variation, you're just getting a slightly different location. Good. Let it relax. It's a lot of work happening at the hands. You might feel a lot of fatigue. You might feel some nervous system sensations. Just be gentle with your body. Go light and short range of motion to begin. The last thing I'm going to share too about the hand and arthritic changes, I'm finding what's interesting in working with people that might have carpal tunnel, that might have just discomfort in their shoulder. We're looking down into the fascial tissues, sometimes at the back of the hand right here, sometimes at the palm, but sometimes in between the metacarpals in your hand. How do you get there, right? Yeah, you can massage. You can try to get some space just gently through manual work. But the other way you can get it through fascia, more from the inside out. Same equation, shorten, contract, move in the opposite direction. I like to do this a lot with my left hand, because if you look at my hand here, these two fingers are very close together. And what I've discovered, because I've had some pathology in here, I've had to have a calcium deposit aspirated, but the fascial tissue and now potentially scar tissue has gathered these two metacarpals closer together. And hence, this is more of a natural shape of my hand. So what you want to do is shorten the space that you're aiming for. So let's say we're aiming for here. You're going to shorten by just slipping your other hand in between as much as you can. So you can't shorten much more than this. It's kind of hard to maneuver. So getting two fingers in, add contraction as if you're squeezing them together. And then your other hand is going to slowly pry them open. And you can go for it. You can really do a classical stretch at the end here if it feels comfortable for you. Squeeze in, start with fascia, end with a classical stretch. And watch what happens. Space. So do that between every finger. Thumb, you're just pulling it in as your hand carries it out, creating some fascia work between the thumb and the pointer finger here. You can also pin, move it around. Good. That one feels good. Might need a little bit more of that later. So there you have a couple options of things that you can do after doing this work. If you feel that there's a lot that happened, feel free to ice or heat, both or combination. Move your shoulders around a little bit. Let that energy float back up into the body and move. Moving different parts of your body, the head, the shoulders, the ribs, just helps to bring all that effort back together.